ॐ मधुर सरलवाक्यई ईशतत्त्वं प्रकाश्य कुशगतपरिशेषोऽपि ईशपुत्रो अमृतो यः तमतिशयं पवित्रं मेरियां लोकबन्धुं परमप्रेममूर्तिं दीननाथं भजाम। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We bow down to Christ, whose sweet and simple message reveals the truth of God, who, though crucified, is immortal, the Son of God, who is purity incarnate, is born of Mary, the friend of all, the Lord of the lowly, and the supreme love personified. Om, peace, peace, peace. Today our topic is what did Christ teach? In simple language, Christ taught that we realize God. Very simple. He taught that we should get out of the bondage of life. He taught us that we should see the truth face to face. Yesterday was Holy Mother's birthday, and Holy Mother was looked upon as the cosmic love personified. So Christ was personified love. That's why it is so much the same truth revealed again and again in different costumes as we believe. So the relevance is that though it is yesterday was Holy Mother's birthday, we celebrated the birthday of Holy Mother full of love and affection, who actually redeems the suffering of human being. That is Holy Mother. We heard about her life. We read about her life, how she could just absorb the sufferings of others and release them from their bondage. Spiritual illumination she used to give. We are looking at the same Divine Mother's heart in Christ, who actually came to redeem the whole world, as is the plan of all the realized souls who have come as a messenger for our redemption. So, message of Christ, or what we learn, is really to get out of the bondage in which we are. In the Gnostic Gospel, where we find that Christ teaches a totally different teaching. Not different teaching, but it is a part with the teaching of what we are familiar as believers of the Vedic religion. Swami Vivekananda mentioned that if I, as an Oriental, have to worship Jesus of Nazareth, there is only one way left to me, that is to worship him as God and nothing else. That was Swami Vivekananda's perception. And to the masses who could not conceive of anything higher than a personal God, Swami Vivekananda continues, he said, "Pray to your Father in heaven." To others who could grasp the higher idea, he said, "I am the vine, ye are the branches." But to his disciples, to whom he revealed himself more fully, he proclaimed the highest truth, "I and my Father are one." In a nutshell, Swami Vivekananda has given here the total purpose of the coming advent of Christ. The whole of the Eastern thought, if we analyze, the three philosophies are actually knitted into the whole Vedic culture. Those who cannot understand the absolute idea of divinity, they will think that God is sitting somewhere in the heaven and we can pray and cry and then He can be compassionate to us. But for a little different type of personality who are little advanced, they will think, no, God is not separate from me, but He is full, I am only a part. He is infinite, I am a drop into that infinity. It is not separate as the bonfire and the spark, as the ocean and the drop of water. This is little distinction, at the same time non-distinction. That's why it is called Vishishta Advaita as a philosophy. And Christ said that beautifully, that I am the vine, ye are the branches. This is the teaching. Teaching of what? I am not separate from you. I am the same spark that you are. Only you are a little manifestation is little less, and in me is the fullest manifestation. But to His disciples, that's why Swami Vivekananda said, to His disciples to whom He revealed Himself more fully, He proclaimed the highest truth, that I and my Father are one. So that is the Vedantic concept that I am that divine, that is, I am Brahman, I am that absolute which is timeless and spaceless. So here we find that the idea, what Christ taught us, is to feel one with the divine. This is totally a different concept as we normally think about the message of Christ, the sinner, sin. The sin is there. Sin means misdoings. Sin means ignorance. And I find in the Gnostic Gospel referring as ignorance. Much reference of ignorance is there, and it says that ignorance, if you get out of it, then the light shines in. In the Gnostic Gospel, we find that in Thomas the Twain, he recorded that let one who speak not speak, let one who seeks not stop seeking until one finds. When one finds, one will be troubled. When one is troubled, one will marvel and will reign over all. A beautiful message, if we find, go to the depth of this understanding of these words according to our, because we are always trained to think in this way of Vedantic way of thinking. So it is very easy for us to understand what Christ actually meant and taught here from our perspective. It may not be the perspective of Christian people who know much more maybe Christ in their own way. But if we think what he's saying, that's the key point of the message of Christ. Said, let one who seeks, first of all, we need to seek. Seek to whom to seek? The truth. To find the truth. To knock the door of the unknown realm, which is because of our ignorance we don't know. So here Christ says, let one who seeks not stop seeking until one finds. It's a continuous journey. There is no easy path that, okay, I tried for few months going to church or listening to sermons or reading some books or doing some practices, and then I give up. No. Till the goal is reached, Swami Vivekananda says, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Our spiritual life is that. It is an incessant journey to reach that infinity. And we need infinite patience and infinite respect, infinite love for the truth and ideal. So, beautiful word, who seeks, not stop, seeking until one finds. The urge of the heart should be there, calling upon God to know what is the truth behind. And then when one finds, by chance one finds, then what will happen? One will be troubled. Why it will be troubled? Rather, when one knows, then one even realizes all troubles will go. Troubled because you will be misunderstood. Because your experience is unknown to us. Christ realized something, who will understand that? And because it is not understand, much trouble created in the mind of people. But it does not bother the realized soul. Ramakrishna realized the highest truth, and he was construed as he is the crazy guy. He is thinking in the way others don't think. He is seeing things which the others don't see. We see the matter. Where do we see consciousness? We see the apparent form of men and women, trees and plants, earth and sun and moon and all these things. Who sees consciousness behind everything? Naturally, he will be troubled. Am I correct, or you are all the people will be correct and I am the only correct person? How can I be? If everyone sees the thing differently, then how I will be correct? That confusion will come. That's why Swami Sharadananda, writing in the biography of Ramakrishna, beautifully have mentioned that in the apparent eye of ignorant people, there starts as two little dots of light. And if in the eyes of the scientist it is something different. So who is correct? Few people who know the truth, or millions of people who will vote against the truth. If there is a voting, I think God will be outvoted. Because you don't see him. The whole world will say, I see the world. This is real. What you are talking about? Sri Ramakrishna was talking about that thing, so he was misunderstood. And Christ was talking about that, he was most misunderstood. And that's why people treated him the way they understood is correct. So here is the question that one, and also trouble in the sense, Ramakrishna in his life. We do not know what happened with Christ because those descriptions are not available. But we find that even Sri Ramakrishna attaining to that highest experience, he then was troubled in the sense, am I correct? Am I hallucinating? Am I seeing something wrong? And then ultimately came the teachers who had that experience, who know the scriptures, and scriptures are the testimony of the experienced peoples. Testimony what the experienced people have had in their spiritual experience, whatever they got, that is recorded. And then the teachers certified, justified, yes, when he was confused, then they said, no, it is not your hallucination. These are the realization. There are references in the scriptures. Such it happens when one attains to that extreme, passionate love for God. These are the reactions in the physical body. It happens. It is not physical trouble. It is not physical problem. That's why when Sri Ramakrishna was crying for God, weeping for God, and rubbing his face on the sand and the bed of the Ganga, sandy bed of the Ganga, and then feeling everything tormented, is feeling the tremendous burning sensation all over the body, and no medicine can work. All the doctors were called from Calcutta, then whatever available, they all diagnosed it as a mental case. And so naturally, the others recognized it is something in his brain going wrong. But when that Bhairavi Brahmani, the lady teacher, came in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. And when he saw, he said that that lady said that, "Oh, not my child, it is not an ordinary disease, it is a yogic disease." It happened. It happened with Sri Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya was crying and weeping for God. And that's why even he used to sit under a tree. It is said that leaves will be burned. The bark will get burned because of his body heat is so much. And when Sri Ramakrishna had that, who will understand that that is a yogic something? This is happening because of the tremendous tanks of separation for God. And he used to drown himself into the Ganga and drown up to this throat. And still the burning does not leave. He used to put wet towel over his head. Within few seconds it gets dried up. But this Bhairavi Brahmani recognized that, no, it is not a physical disease. It is a spiritual. People have these experiences because of their tremendous love for God, this separation anxiety, what we call in our normal life, that tremendous separation anxiety for God who is infinite, and the love for that infinity. When it moves to the highest degree, it happens like that. And then she prescribed, of course, some medicine. And that medicine was very simple medicine. She gave some sandal paste, to rub the sandal paste all over the body, and then put some garland. It's very miraculous thing, you can say. Within 3 days, that sensation left. So the question comes that Ramakrishna said that I see all these things. Am I hallucinating? Then that lady said, no, these are all true. And then Monday, the scholars' conference was called, and she said that I can prove before the scholars of Pandits who know about these scriptures that these are all true. This has happened before and it will happen again, and it is happening in you. And then she really faced those scholars and proved before them that Sri Ramakrishna's experiences are genuine. So the troubled situation comes in subjectively, troubled situation comes objectively. Objectively, we people don't understand them because we live in different level of our mind. What is going on today? I think it is now working. Okay. So we are talking about the trouble, and the trouble comes inside and trouble is also outside, because seeking the truth is transcendental and truth is immanent. To understand that truth, which is transcendental and which is immanent, is to be verified by whom? There should be somebody who can testify these are correct. So Christ said that when one finds, one will be troubled. When one is troubled, one will marvel. He will say, wow, what I see. Christ said that, and Ramakrishna said, wow, when the experience comes, that flood of light, that effulgence, that joy which overflows, the person who is practicing will be overwhelmed with that, totally lost into that experience of joy and blessedness. And then will reign over all. After all these things, one will reign. So see, here Christ has given the direction. What is his teaching? In one message we can take our whole life. To hold on to the truth. To search for the truth. What is this universe? Who am I, or what is God? Is there any God? Where he lives? How he lives? And how I can connect with that truth. So this is a lifelong dedication, and that is the message given. And he also continues, this is a very beautiful idea. He says, if your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds of heaven will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you and it is outside you. What? Is it not Vedanta? What we are studying so many years? How deep and how profound. Mirabai, a woman saint of India, she said that if you say that water, by taking a good dip into the holy waters, you will realize God, then the fish will realize God first. If you think that this eating something which is vegetarian or something, he says that तुरन भूखन से हरी मिले तो बहुत रहे है मिग औजा. That means there are goats, there are other animals who, by only being vegetarian, they will realize God. It is not against vegetarianism, don't mind, I am not saying that. But what Mirabai is emphasizing is the point. She says, it is not by these externals. But what she emphasized, Bina prem se na mile nandalala. Your love for God. And what you do outside, try to search in the outside. Many people feel that I go to temple, so I am spiritual. I go to the church, I am spiritual. Even it is said, our Swami used to say, who is a member of a church, if in 365 days, at least, he or she can go one day. So that person will be considered a church goer, member of the church. It is not, as we just know, it is a continuous urge for realizing God. And it will make person restlessness. Sri Ramakrishna in the whole gospel talks about that restlessness for God. So if someone teaches you a God in the heaven, even in the Vedic time it was there. In the Vedic Karma Kanda it is said, people used to perform some rituals and havanam and jaggas. So that after performing that, you will go to heaven. That heaven concept, and what is the concept of heaven? It is a place of pleasure. And that pleasure, we get less pleasure here, we will go greater pleasure there. Its intensity is little stronger. But ultimately, that is also to be rejected, because that pleasure becomes monotonous, is it not? You eat every day the same food, best food you can have, but after 10 days you will feel monotony with that food. You have some fun, one day it is fun, and have same fun 20 days, it will be monotony. So nothing can satisfy, because we are infinite. In us the urge is infinite. So if someone says, okay, there you look, that kingdom is in the heaven and you go there, as if it is not here, that then he said that then the birds, because they fly in the space, they will be quicker to reach there. But we have our jet planes now, or we have our spacecrafts also. So those who can go there, so they will reach God first then. But what Christ said, no, if someone says that in the deep sea you can find God, okay, but then all the fish world and the world who live in the aquatic area, they will realize the truth first. But rather the kingdom is inside you and outside you. This is a very only single word. Great spiritual teachers don't talk much. We don't understand that we talk much. I am talking too much to explain the very simple truth, what Christ said in only half a sentence. What he says, rather the kingdom is inside you and it is outside of you. Must finish. That is the point. Where is kingdom of heaven? Where is God? Where is divinity? All the religions are seeking for. So, this is the only point, seek it here. And as much it is here, that much will come out here, outside. It will be directly proportionate. One becoming spiritual means that his total transformation will come. Christ said in another message, no? That what is that? In the Beatitude, one place is there when blessed rejoice. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. That is message of the Christ. What he says, let your light shine before men that they may see your works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So this is the direct expression of spirituality, what Christ wanted to give us. That what if you think God is here, it will shine forth through your very being, your very personality. You will radiate that light, you will radiate that peace, you will give that joy unconsciously. And that is the sign that you are proceeding towards God. And not searching here and there. Swami Vivekananda wrote a beautiful poem, In Search of God, and where he said, in hill and dell, in mountain caves, I was searching for thee, O Lord, here and there, and I tried my whole life, and I found, just I am paraphrasing, that everywhere came the resounding voice, no, 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 God is not here anywhere. And suddenly one day, what a change! I found suddenly that in me there came a flash and a realization, oh Lord, you are here in me and all around, and in mountain, in hill and dell, everywhere it revealed the same truth. So this is the simultaneous development in spiritual life. What in the Gnostic Gospel, Christ referred only few lines, that kingdom is inside you. So if it is inside you, where to search? That's one point. And it is why I shall be charitable. Charity is a big word in Christian world, and also in every religion, to be charitable, to be kind, to help others. That is it. Why I shall help? Swami Vivekananda raised this question. Why shall I, if I feel that being selfish, I will be enjoying more life, money, wealth, all the pleasures of life, why I shall think of others? There is no reason of thinking of others. If it makes me happy to have it within, here, within means whatever I understand about me. In my body, I think my body, so bodily joy, fun, pleasure, everything about body. If I think mind, my emotion to satisfy the emotion, and my mental joys what I can get through whatever sources. So what is me for this? Then if it is so much, why I shall think of others? There comes this concept of Vedanta. What is here, that is there. So here Christ gives that direct instruction, that kingdom which is inside, and it is also outside of you. That means this whole world is permeated by the kingdom of heaven. And the whole inner world is permeated by the kingdom of heaven. To see that kingdom here, if it is not seen, no one can see outside. Charity will be egotistic expression of our pomp and power. It will not really take us to God unless here is God. So God should be here and God should be there. And that expression, that is the Vedantic expression. And we have, at the beginning, we have talked about that, that which is this truth within and truth outside. It is only one absolute truth is there. So ignorance only veils that, and in the Gnostic Gospel, he has also mentioned. If you know how to suffer, Christ said, you will be able not to suffer. Beautiful word, no? If you know how to suffer, you would be able not to suffer. Learn how to suffer. Learn how to suffer, and you will be able not to suffer. That's why there is a round dance of the cross. We thought that Christ was crying and weeping for being crucified. But it's the dance of joy. That type of reference is there in this Gnostic Gospel. It's a total revelation. Death is not to be frightened. It is welcome. Death is such a powerful thing which is happening every day. So what is the speciality in one day when it comes? Why it is so much fearful? So beautiful. If you know how to suffer, then you would be able not to suffer. When we look at the lives of the great saints, we find that they have looked upon this suffering totally different. It is an opportunity. When suffering comes, that gives us insight. Two things it happens. First, suffering comes, we have made a concept of this world that everything in the world is beautiful. Everything is nice. In the youthful mind we all think, no? The world is different. Everything is bright, everything is cheerful, everything is joyful. But when you age, like you cross 50s, 60s, 70s, then you see, hey, it is the other side. Most of the time you see, oh, someone is sick. Oh, someone is in, ICU. Someone is going through this, life support. Oh my God, this flower is no more beautiful then. The same flower, but it looks different. So suffering sometimes, not sometimes, is to be looked upon as a great opportunity. Great opportunity when it comes in our life. We cannot take it. That's why we cry and weep. And what happens to us? We drown ourselves in that cry, and we go to depression. And also who love us, they also go to depression. But the question is that this is an opportunity to see what the world gives us, the apparent world we see. We don't see God. If there is God, there is no question of suffering. We don't see God, we see the human, and human with the flesh and blood as we see the external. And that's why our vision, our orientation is in such that we get the burden of it. But when we know that this is only apparent, here he continues, that he gives the example that this book also writes about the Buddha's experience of pain. The pain is no pain. Pain, when you welcome, it becomes a subject of joy. See, apparently, when the monks, they give up their home and be wandering monks in India or any authentic religion, then what happens? They give up what they give up, they accept the painful aspect of life as it were, depending on God, whether you get food or not, whether you walk barefooted, whether you shall be clothed with some warm garment or not. You do not know anything, and you accept that pain. And Buddha accepted apparently that, and Buddha's philosophy is there is pain in life and you cannot ignore that. And rather learn how to fight it out. So here also beautifully expressed that if we know what is this suffering, and then we can overcome that. And this is a lesson, it is eternal lesson for all of us forever. As I said, When suffering comes, it opens our eyes. It puts us to question why it happened, why I am here, and what is the ultimate goal beyond this. So this concept actually haunts the heart of a sincere person. So it is opening a door to the infinite, to the wisdom. Rather not looking life in a very parameter of our little body and mind, rather it gives us some leap or, to push us to go somewhere little beyond. So, and that is an opportunity, because life is precious. And in this life, how much we can utilize to reach towards that perfection, towards that infinity, which is our divine nature, and which the whole world is permeated. So this pain, to look at that pain, is another aspect what Christ taught by his accepting the crucifixion. We have to bear our cross, is it not? Our cross. And also another explanation is there, that we have to cut our eye, big eye, cut it. So whole teaching in one sentence can be put that way, how to cut our big eye. Not big eye means petty eye, which I think I am everything, that eye. I am not saying big eye means God, that is not to be mixed up. But this is the idea that symbol indicates, the cross indicates this higher values. In Vedanta we'll say, that is a symbol. That is the symbolic expression. Accept the pain, accept the suffering in boldness, and try to disidentify. Cut it, that you are identified. Your ego says, I am the body. Cut it. Your ego says, I am the mind, I am the emotion, I am an intelligent person, I am such and such. Cut. Total cutting off from that ego gives the total liberation. And that is the freedom. There comes the freedom. So the pain then becomes freedom, which is apparently starts with pain. In Gita suggests that which is at the beginning pain and ultimately brings peace and joy. That is the true sattvika joy. Others which apparently begins with much sweetness and ends in utter frustration, that is the tamasic and rajasic type of thing. Jattadagre vishamiva pariname amrito upamam, which is at the beginning appears to be like little poison, to renounce, to give this, to focus in God and cry for God, and not any apparent thing appealing to me. I'll have to analyze, these are impermanent, and God is the only reality, and then be mad for God. This is at the very beginning very difficult. Even to practice our spiritual discipline is difficult. In this cold weather, if you are asked to get up in the morning and then sit for meditation and take a shower, and though it is hot water is available, but still, but it is really difficult to go through the austerities of all this. So, but it is at the beginning, it is really painful, but you sit for meditation and practice days after days to see, as Christ said just now, that to see inside you, and then you can come out, and then you can see outside. So that struggle to begin with is a difficulty. But when one gets accustomed to that, then that joy will pull us more and more. And then that joy will be here, and that joy will be reflected in the same world. Many of you have experienced surely that when you have a good meditation that day, you come out and see the nature, same your garden, the same people you meet. You see them differently. You see some joy, expression of joy everywhere. You can hug the person whom you don't like at all, because here is the touch of that divinity, and that touch comes outside. It's spontaneous. No one have to teach anything. It becomes spontaneous. So this is the looking at the life and looking at the pain condition, then is a great lesson how we can accept which comes. I am not saying go and search for pain. That is not the point. But the point is that which is inevitable in life, which it comes, it should not be frightening, rather it can be a good lesson for us to question and to probe and to see what lesson it teaches us. And then if we move to find the solution in the path of this Christ, what Christ taught, what Holy Mother taught, what Sri Ramakrishna taught, what the ancient sages have mentioned in the Upanishads, so then we get a right direction in life, and gradually we establish ourselves in that divine level. Another message I find from there is so much, but I have only taken a few points. It says that when you know yourselves, then you will be known and will understand that you are children of the living Father. What a beautiful word, no? When you know yourself, it is Christ speaking. Know yourself. The whole Vedanta comes over here. Know thyself. Swami Vivekananda emphasized. Know thyself. We know the whole world. We know physics, chemistry, math, and all these intricacies of the science outside. What you call the amoebic structure, the structure of the cell, cellular structure, go to the deepest secret of the material things outside to the instruments. But we do not know which consciousness is asking me to see and probe into that. And then Christ here says, when you know yourselves, that knowing is not knowing through the eyes. We know through the eyes. And we see how much suffering we get through it. Only seeing through the eyes, hearing through this ear, and through the senses, only this external thing. We see the world and we know its consequences. But this knowing is, though the language is human language, but this not knowing is not the knowing through your senses, but to know which is something direct. That's why in Vedanta they say, aparaksha anubhuti. Aparaksha means there is no media. Here I know you because of my senses. And senses is active and my brain is active. But if there is some defect in my eyes or my perception or my mood or my mind, so I will see you differently. The objectively it may be same, but subjectively it is different. So this is the problem of knowing through the eyes and senses, depending on the instrumentality through which we normally know the world. But when we see that knowing what Christ says, it is no media. Don't depend on any media. These eyes, it may be good sometimes, but it may be defective. As you cannot read without the glass, no? So the writing is there, but I cannot read. So similarly, hearing aid is here, ear is here, but I don't hear. But what I hear distorted all the time. That's why many times we get into confusion among interpersonal relationships. You said that. Well, I said, I don't say that. Because there is a misconception between this message being conveyed and who received that message. So this is possible. But if you face to face, you see the truth face to face, when there is no other medium. That means not the body, not the mind, not your emotions, not your intelligence. These are all filtering media through which it gets probability of distortion. Probability and probability of correction also, if they are all clean. If there is some coloring on those medias, it will be colored. The thing will be appearing colored. So for us it is all colored. That's why we conflict with each other. If we really analyze the point, why we differ with each other. Because my mind teaches it is right, and your mind teaches this is right. Nowadays I say that everything is right. Everyone is in right point, because whatever his or her mind is actually looking at the same object, that is his or her perception. We are bound to do that. That's why if we are all pure Sattik, our mind is really saturated with God consciousness, then I will see the same thing, you will see the same thing. That's why Ramakrishna said, all the jackals howl the same way. Whether in America or in Russia or in India or in Ireland, it will be the same. Meaning, all the realized souls, what their message is there, this is exactly same. Only it differs when it is filtered through the layers of the recipients. So here we find, when you will know yourself, then you will be known and will understand that you are children of the living Father. This is what a grand, direct approach. Living Father as our earthly Father. So similarly, that Father is not dead. He is not sitting idle in the heaven and doing some business. But it is the direct expression of that divine. That we are all the direct, palpable expression of that Satchidananda. So that will be the experience, that I am the same as everyone is. That is the Vedantic idea. As I am, so everyone is the same. And then, but if you do not know yourself, then you dwell in poverty, and you are poverty. It's a beautiful word. Really, we are so, Rabindranath Tagore said that, Alpo loiya thaki, I live with very petty little. Not knowing is my pettiness, and I think this is me and mine. And taha, that's why whatever I lose. But in your infinitude, when I go into that infinitude, I am totally charged with that oneness. So we become poor. See, in language, if you read Swami Vivekananda's language, it will be so at par. And the saying that if you do not know, I do not know myself, or neither know that. That the reason is that inside and outside we have to see the same truth, as Christ just suggested, that rather kingdom is inside you and it is outside you. If it is practiced in that way, then it is knowing. And if it is not known, then what? We are leading the life, normal day-to-day life, as we are leading, forgetting God, our divinity, and the divinity of others. Why we misbehave with others? Because we don't know the dignity of others. I don't see the divinity in others, neither I am seeing divinity in myself. If I see divinity in myself, it gives dignity. Dignity of this and dignity of others. Holy Mother was an example, we are talking about that. Could give the dignity to all. There is no separation, there is no higher and lower in that. That's why to know, if you do not know yourself, then you dwell in poverty. Poverty means we are really poor. We think that we are so little, we are so tiny, and our life is this bound by the birth and death and all the cycles of pains and sufferings and all this. That is poverty. But we are rich enough. If you feel God is all pervaded and God is all full of mercy and joy, He is the absolute ocean of bliss, then we are that. If we say we are His child, the child or the son inherits the property of the father. So if father is so big, how can you be a poor? Then you are not connected with father, that's why you are poor. So this is the point, knowing God or not knowing. If it is known, then you are, you will be known. You will be known means you will be known as a knower of truth. You will be known as an extraordinary child of God, or you are the sage or saint or whatever. As that's why Christ is known so much. Why? Because He has no ego in anywhere. He has no personality excepting the divine personality. He has nothing inside and outside, immanent and transcendent in both areas. He saw the same reality. So because of that, he never dwelt in poverty. See the dignity, knowing fully well, welcoming the crucifixion, not yielding a little bit, deviating from the truth, or not accepting anything which is untruth. What a boldness of character comes. Person becomes tremendously strong when they hold on to this principle. So that knowing, and knowing actually releases us from bondage. As we know, then we are free from all our ignorance and bondage. So, otherwise we live in this poverty of in which we feel that we are so lost in the life and we have not accomplished anything. People even at the point of death go with frustration. But if little bit of knowing comes, then one can just go with so much joy. So we have to see then what? There is a Sanskrit chant, Antarbahi jadi hari tapasa tato kim. Na antarbahi jadi hari tapasa tato kim. If you don't see God inside and don't see outside, then what is the meaning of your going to do any austerity for God or chanting name or meditation or prayer or going to pilgrimage? It's meaningless. And if you see inside and outside, what is the need of your going to perform any austerity or anything? That means emphasis is no, God is inside, God is outside. So how to see that divinity that actually Christ showed us? That's why it is said, the few words of Christ is really, always it is inspirational, but we have almost time is up, but I will read the few verses. You all know, but these are very powerful, and whenever we read, we find energy of it. So it is, they see, Christ says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall see God. What does that mean? To be free from pride. Talking high philosophy is one thing, but to apply in day-to-day life. So, poor in spirit means humble. Humble does not mean that you are weak. Humility is a top virtue of a person. Who can do that? Who have power, that person can be humble. I am nothing, I am fearful, so I am humble. So that humble humility is no humility at all. So, should be free from pride in learning, wealth, beauty, lineage, has preconceived ideas of what spiritual life is and how it should be taught. His mind is not receptive or receptive of the teaching. That's why it is called the humility. That's why the student go to the teacher with humility to learn from the teacher. Blessed are that they mourn, for they shall be comforted. Beautiful word. It can be and you can read the Swami Prabhuvanandaji's book. Beautiful. You should get it, because this inspiration. Mourn means for what? We mourn for worldly things, worldly pleasures, worldly possessions, worldly power, name, fame. But this is the blessed mourning because it is for the spirit. We feel loneliness, we should feel loneliness for God. So with that is the Ramakrishna used to say, oh mother, another day is gone. When the sun used to go in the western horizon, and he used to say, oh mother, another day is gone, I have not reached you. That is the mourning. That mourning should be the practice of our life. He said that blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit earth. That means freed from egotism. We can go into thinking of these higher ideals. Blessed are they who do hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. This is a very fundamental point. We want to bring our spiritual superstructure, multi-storied superstructure, but the foundation is here. They who do hunger and thirst for righteousness, righteous living, at least that righteous level can go higher up, but at the very beginning it is also the true meaning that we should be purely full of character. This is synonymous with salvation. It is not merely moral virtues or good qualities alone, but absolute goodness, that is the righteousness. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. To feel for the world, feel for the suffering of others, who are there in the others, as Christ taught us. But even if we don't think, you see, so long we think of ourselves only, as Swami Vivekananda said, we become selfish. And we bring us to away from the whole universe. And when we think of others, our heart expands. Swami Vivekananda even said that why there is so much suffering in the world? Because that will to make you great. Because you will feel then to do something for the people who are in suffering. So here Christ said, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Envy, jealousy, hatred, these are the universal weakness, inborn in person, comes from our ego, our ignorance, and to overcome that, we need to practice this compassion or love for others, mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Swami Vivekananda said, if from the world everything disappears, only these few words remain. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. The world will be saved forever. Everything is gone. Only this word. The blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. It is impossible to be pure in heart, because mind is crooked. Mind always does not think in straight way. And mind takes our attention in such a way, confused way, to divert and digress our attention from God. The simplicity. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said, be like a child. Be innocent like a child. God realization is easy for them who are very child. We are talking about yesterday that story, that lady who saw Holy Mother. She is an ordinary person, have no concept of spirituality, apparently. But we see, because of her simple, pure heart, she lived with Mother and thought that she saw something, that vision, experience, whatever, it came spontaneous. Because mind was so clean. So here is the best advice is that we need to practice this, to be pure in heart. So others are all the messages. Every message, whenever I read Bible, I feel really so close to the spiritual truth that it is always inspirational. And I think all of you will feel that way. So this is the season to think of Christ and most intimately to take Him into our life and make our life holy. So let us pray for that. Thank you all.
Oh
So next Sunday will be our Swami Atma Rupananda. He is a good speaker. You should all come. And he has gone to India, but he has come back for some other reason. So he will be available next Sunday here. His topic is Jesus of history and Jesus of myth, again about Christ. And he will be few days here and then go back to India. He is doing another big work for our order. And any other announcement? Important? No. Okay. So, we'll conclude with a chant, and we'll be meeting in the living room for some question answer. You are all welcome. And today afternoon also we have our Vivekananda house in Pasadena. There we go and meditate and then read some Vivekananda's works from 4 to 7. You are welcome whenever you can. Om sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve shantu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkhavag bhavet. Om sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. Om shanti, shanti, shantihi. Om. May all be happy. May all be freed from disease. May all realize what is good. May none be subject to misery. May all be freed from dangers. May all realize what is noble. May all be actuated by higher thoughts. May all rejoice everywhere. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.